and welcome to the weekly recap. I'm Matt Wacker. We begin this edition with a few results from April 5th's municipal election in Rolla. Incumbent municipal judge James Crump secured 68% of the vote over challenger Paul McMahon and will return for a fourth term. Councilman Monty Jordan secured 68% as well in his Ward 1 contest against challenger Michael Doan. Vehicle sales tax will continue to be collected as voters rejected the proposed local use tax on purchases made out of state and over the internet. Newburgh's 96-cent property tax levy increase passed by only a 3-vote margin. 4,167 votes were cast in Rolla on Tuesday, a number representing less than 17% of all registered voters in the county. Unofficial election results in Lebanon reveal first-time mayoral candidate Josh Ray as the victor in his race against longtime council member Bill Wheeler. Watch the recap next week for a special interview with the City of Lebanon's new mayor. If Merrimack Caverns is on your spring to-do list, you may have to postpone your plans. The natural attraction near Stanton is temporarily closed due to higher than acceptable levels of trichloroethylene in the cave's air. Les Torelli is the owner of Merrimack Caverns Enterprises. He has decided to cease cave tours while the party potentially responsible for the contamination, TRW Automotive, institutes an agent to reduce the level of TCE in the cave. Torelli and family have worked with environmental agencies since 2003 and have shown compliance with acceptable health levels. However, more recent EPA studies indicate potential health risks at lower concentrations, meaning the cave no longer meets standards considered healthy, particularly for workers. Attempts to reach Torelli for comment were unsuccessful, and no date has been decided for the venue's reopening. The ongoing saga of the West Side Marketplace continues. In a packed meeting room at the Phelps County Courthouse, residents and city officials went back and forth on the usage of tax increment financing. Developer UTW announced that they would seek less TIF assistance than initially requested, but that Phase 1 of the project would now only consist of a Menards store plus about 125 to 200,000 square feet of additional retail space. The people of Rolla have plenty to say about the TIF, the location of the development, and Rolla's pursuit of industry in general. The public hearing will continue on May 4th at the courthouse, following an updated cost-benefit analysis for the reduced size of the project. According to the Missouri Bicycle and Pedestrian Federation, over 2 million Missourians are regular bicyclists. With bicycling and foot traffic on the rise, towns are seeing the need to transform streets, sidewalks, and right-of-ways into usable paths for more than just vehicle traffic. What exactly is involved in creating bike and walk-friendly communities? And how do we foster a culture that welcomes bicycling residents and visitors? Leanne Mentink spoke with the Director of Rolla Public Works, Steve Hargis.
I'm here with Rolla Public Works Director Steve Hargis. Steve, I understand that bicycle and pedestrian accessibility is one of the priorities in the upcoming transportation plan for the city of Rolla. Can you tell me a little bit about what goes into the planning of those aspects?
Okay, yeah, we've hired a consultant, Alta Planning and Design, to help us come up with what's called a complete street strategy for the city. It's custom made for us, and part of that strategy is to try to encompass all the different facets of the types of transportation that can take place in a streets corridor. We've got vehicles, you have walkers, you have bicyclists, skateboarders, all the different types of modes of transportation that can take place in that corridor, and there's standards obviously for each one of those categories of use. There's standards for the vehicles, there's standards for say sidewalks in terms of handicapped accessibility. There's requirements on what constitutes a bike route, what makes a bike lane, how is it signed, how is it marked. I mean, there's guidelines that do all those things, and in a complete street strategy, what you try to do is kind of look at your city from both the actual corridor itself, what's going on in that specific corridor, but you also need to look at the big picture in terms of a network.
So why is this particularly important for the city of Rolla? Like, what are the specifics that we're lacking to sort of move forward in this area?
Well, I mean, there's obviously we're a community that's got a fairly large population of our students wanting to get to school and go to classes. And if you look around the campus, there's not a whole lot of parking opportunities. So the traditional being able to drive from your house to go to school, to go to the state university, it's kind of tough because there's no place to put all the cars. Mm-hmm. And so what we're trying to do is to promote, other modes of transportation like walking and riding your bike, mm-hmm. and providing those networks that are there and available for people to use.
So what is the next step for the city of Raleigh? I know that there's been a consultant hired.
Right.
But what's the next plan of action toward those steps?
We've spent several months actually going through various standards of what other communities our size are doing in the nation, and we've picked out, I think, 3 communities that kind of mirror the circumstances of Raleigh, and we're kind of looking at what they do and use them as benchmarks to measure how we're going along. So the very next step would be to take this proposed street strategy to the city council, and probably in the form of a resolution, and have the city council review it, have it available for the public, for public input, discuss it, make sure everybody kind of is comfortable with it, and then adopt it, and then to start using this strategy in the future for our entire staff, for not only just my department, but everybody that's involved mm-hmm. in anything to do with streets, to kind of look at the criteria and make sure that we're perpetuating this concept of a complete street, and that we're addressing the needs of all the users, not just cars, or not just bicycles, or not just pedestrians, but everybody, and doing that in the most economical way we can do it, because there's a limited amount of resources.
Sure.
And then, of course, another big goal of ours is to establish some sort of bike network for a signed network that would give bicyclists a clue that this is where they need to ride their bike.
Like a designated biking lane that we've seen in...
Maybe a designated lane, or maybe sharrows, but those things, not only do they help the bicyclists, but they also help the motorists, because when they're adequately signed, then the motorists can expect to see bicycles on the street, and it is quite legal to ride your bike on the street. So it's a way to kind of designate those zones where the bike is, where the car is, and so that everybody kind of respects each other's space.
So how long till we see the first bike paths going on the street?
Well, I don't know. We did a kind of a demonstration project on Raleigh Street. We did a combination of bike lanes and sharrows. We signed it. We actually just overlaid it here last summer. We have not put it back yet. And then one of the things I hope to do with this consultant, when we get the complete street strategies done, I think the next formal process would be then for them to help us formally adopt a bike route system. Mm-hmm. And then we'll slowly but surely begin to develop the routes, mark them, sign them, and it may take several years to fully implement, but you got to start somewhere. Yeah. So we're gonna try to move into that area next.
So what have other cities seen in terms of reduced traffic fatalities or injuries that have implemented the complete street strategy?
I think that is obviously something that can be done. Is you can actually see where fatalities particularly go down, safety goes up, bicycle usage goes up. Mm-hmm. The more bicycles that are out there, the less cars that are being used, right. The less congestion you have, less pollution you have. So this is not just something that's going on in Raleigh, Missouri. It's going on over the whole country. And some cities are in a big way, and some cities like Raleigh are having a hard time getting out of the gate, getting it going.
Well, we appreciate it, Steve Hargis, and look forward to seeing a lot more in terms of complete streets, and looking forward to the future. Thank you so much.
Very good.
Despite cities' efforts to become bike and walk friendly, bicycling on rural roads can be hazardous as well. We talked with local resident and avid cyclist Dennis Newell about the problem.
I'm talking to health and wellness advocate and avid cyclist Dennis Knoll. He lives here in the Rolla area. Dennis, a recent report in the state of Missouri says that rural areas are at risk for health and traffic accidents due to the lack of pedestrian and bike-friendly roads. What has been your experience in that respect?
Well, we see a lot of anger on the roads, and people tend to be angry when they approach something that's new and that they don't do. They're angry if someone's pulling a trailer full of horses and they get stuck behind it. They're angry if a tractor's going down the road from one field to another and they get stuck behind it. And they're angry if someone's on a bicycle, going to work, doing it for exercise, whatever. So I see a lot of anger.
So it's just everybody's in too big of a hurry or trying to get wherever they're going, I guess.
It's a very hectic world, and you know, we just have to know that we're going to encounter things on the road other than ourselves, and we're going to have to plan accordingly.
That's true. Do you have any experience personally with any of the injuries that have taken place on Phelps County roads?
Well, you know, like I said, people tend to think about themselves and what they're interested in and not others. Motorcycles, for example, many times pass us within 3 or 4 inches, and they don't want cars doing that to them. We have a lot of cars that will pull in front of us and immediately slam on their brakes. They're wanting to teach us that we shouldn't be on the road, which we do have the right to be, but they don't think about they could injure us. One soldier rode with us a lot from Fort Leonard Wood, and he went to Iraq, and he came back and he rode with us, and he went for his second tour. And when he would email me and say, all I want to do is relax and get back on the road and get out in the country, and how beautiful Missouri was. He was from Maine. And he came back, and about 3 days after he was back, he was very shaky and nervous. He had experienced a lot of stuff at war. And we went out on the road, and we were riding, and an older gentleman pulling a trailer, a flatbed trailer, with veteran signs in the back of his window, pulled in front of us and slammed on his brakes. The soldier, I don't want to mention his name, went in the ditch, flipped his bike, hit his head, and had survived 2 tours of duty and was almost killed by a veteran who jumped out of his truck and hollered, "You have no right to be on this road." And this young man had just fought for our rights.
Yeah.
And
that's tragic.
That a lot, though.
That is tragic. What would you say would be, if you were talking to motorists, what would be the top 3 things that you would request that motorists keep in mind when they encounter cyclists and or joggers on area roads?
Well, how would you approach this situation if it was your daughter or son? Which I've had my daughter ran off the road when I was with her, and it's so scary. And then patience. Just be patient. So kind of do unto others and be patient. Mm-hmm. If I had to pick a third one, I'd say pick one of those 2 and repeat it.
There you go. And what about for cyclists themselves? Are there anything cyclists can do to keep themselves safe?
Well, most cyclists, on an average, are between 5'10" and 6 foot. So let's just use 6 foot, so it's 2-inch, variable in there. Well, somewhere between 150 and 250 pounds. So let's use 6 foot, 200 pounds, setting 4 foot in the air on a bicycle, wearing bright, bright colors with a flashing red light. And people say, I come up on you so fast that I can't react. Well, if there's a child crossing a road, if there's a stalled car, if it's an Amish wagon, if it's a tractor, you're going to come up on that just as quick. Bicyclists need to share the road, and we generally ride about 2-3 feet from the shoulder. That way, when a car does pass you within 2 inches, you have some leeway without going in the ditch and flipping. But get over to the side the best you can. Use your flashing lights, dress in bright colors, wear a helmet, because things are going to happen, and be kind. try to get license plates.
Well, that's an interesting suggestion there, and I know that there is different kinds of legislation trying to pass. Some of it I know is controversial. But in terms of an actual bike-friendly roadway or even a jogger-friendly roadway, how would you describe that roadway?
Well, when they put the bike lanes on Rolla Street, I like that. It gave cars an idea that you should be on the road and share the road signs. Mm-hmm. But those bike lanes, they saw, oh, there will be bikes here. I'm going to expect it. And someone with authority had to paint that, so I know they can be here. So I like bike lanes. I like share the road signs, which reminds people that it is legal and they can be there. And build the roads as wide as possible.
So do you see, as we move into the future, cycling traffic increasing, obviously, probably foot traffic as well? So hopefully we can get those aspects together to improve the health and well-being of our citizens.
Yes, and I want to say that our local police and sheriff's department's done a wonderful job. They are very, very, very busy, and when we've contacted them, they do take it serious. And it's just so many times it's a blue car, and it goes by so fast, and we're looking at the ditch, and we don't know, we don't get much information, but they really do. We're very fortunate with our local law enforcement.
Well, and I know the city is also working to try to improve access for walkers and cyclists in town as well. So, Dennis, we thank you. I appreciate it. Back to you.
Many Missourians see the need for change regarding bicycle and motorist interaction on the state's roads. How those changes should take place is not always a matter of agreement. Next week, we'll explore what cyclists and lawmakers have to say about the future of cycling in Missouri. 23-year-old Jared Brown of St. James is behind bars. During an early morning traffic stop on March 30th in Bell, Deputy Brett Turnbow noticed a loaded handgun in Brown's vehicle. Brown was arrested, and a search of the vehicle revealed over $10,000 in illegal drugs. Brown is being charged with 2 counts of possession of a controlled substance, unlawful use of a weapon, as well as possession of marijuana and drug paraphernalia. Brown was also wanted in Phelps County for distributing drugs. Brown is being held at the Marys County Jail with no bond. A Gerald man was fatally injured in an accidental flash fire on March 31st. 47-year-old Roy Helling was found dead at the residence in the 200 block of Northwood Circle in Melody Lake, outside of Leslie. Footage from a security system showed Helling working on the engine of a truck, attempting to pour what appeared to be gasoline into the carburetor. The truck burst into flames, injuring Helling's face and head. The incident was reported by a friend of the victim who left before law enforcement arrived. A team of soldiers from Fort Leonard Wood recently took part in the 27th Annual Bataan Memorial Death March, an event honoring the 75,000 Filipino and American POWs who were forced to march 65 miles through the Philippines during the Second World War. This year's competition was held at the White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico. Team members were privileged to meet World War II vets who had survived the actual march all those years ago. That's all for now. From all of us here at the Weekly Recap, I'm Matt Wacker. Thanks for watching.